Yo, boys, welcome to the movie To What If Deku Had a Yandere, Demon Slayer girlfriend. If you guys would actually like to see another series kind of like this, leave a comment down below, because all of our suggestions are open to, suggestions I guess. And also boys, I want to just say something here really quick. Can we hit 3,000 subscribers to the end of the year? I'm trying to hit that milestone, boys. If you guys can hit that, that'd be highly appreciated. And also, I'm trying to finish most of my series off as soon as I can. With Yandere Mina, I'm finishing that off in next week. So that should turn into a movie almost instantaneously. So that should become a movie. And then all my series should be finished off by then. If that, it should at least be finished. So I hope you all enjoy this video, and if you do end up doing it, show support, and goodbye. So, let's just start off with our cinnamon rolls point of view. Let's just say, at the age of, let's just say 10, to start this a little bit off. As Izuku was trailing through the streets, walking by shops, walking with Bakugo. Bakugo still bully Izuku in this timeline, but be a little bit more, let's just say, lenient with him. But the more Izuku stayed around him, he would see that Bakugo was no good for him. And then the other thing he stayed around him for was the comfort that he actually got from it, having a friend. Well, a fake friend, but it's there nonetheless. As Bakugo would call Izuku Deku, and sort of use his quirk on him the moment the chance he got. But the more Bakugo did that, the more Izuku hated the hatred towards him. As one day Izuku finally snapped. So we're gonna go straight to that very point in time where Izuku finally snapped. As Izuku would travel through, the neighborhood until he reached a certain area in the park. "Ow," she said out loud. "Bakugo, stop bullying me," she said, as Izuku walked over and told Bakugo to stop it. "Bachan, what are you doing?" Izuku said. "What do you think I'm doing, you useless, quirkless nerd? I'm just going to show this little punk a lesson, that she will never grow up to be a hero or a doctor, because no one's going to hire a pathetic loser that only knows how to even summon forms of poison from her skin. And she doesn't even know how to use it correctly. That's funny," Bakugo said in an arrogant, poshy tone. Her quirk can actually be used very versatile as well. If she wants to be a hero, she could technically make all the poison and everything surround her blades, swords, or even daggers, Izuku said. "So what? Even if she had that, the poison would leak off the sword. Not if she actually keeps the blades, the compound on it. If she's able to do that, then she's able to release poison the person that's in front of her with the blade," Izuku said confidently, but that confidence would be no more very shortly, as that would be short-lived. As Bakugo threw an explosion at Izuku's face, making him fall to the ground. As the moment Izuku rose his face from the ground, Bakugo kicked him and punched him in the face. Along with that, Izuku drew blood from the top of his eye, bleeding to the scar on Izuku's forehead, leaving a nice gash there. As Izuku lifted his head up once more, as Bakugo spat at him. "You come near me again and start talking this type of shit, Deku, I'll kill you," Bakugo said. As Izuku got up, with just a single glaze of his left eye, holding it, feeling the pain that was triggering through his head, as the little girl came up to him and asked if he was alright, as Izuku just nodded and said he was okay, but she knew that he wasn't okay. So she managed to manifest a little poison from her skin that would be able to numb the pain that Izuku was feeling from his body, and covered it in that acid, making Izuku's pain-filled nightmare at the top of his eye feeling like it was just a small little scratch. But the moment that would live short-lived, as Inko would have arrived at the park to pick up her son. Seeing the state that Izuku was in, she'll be thinking that the little girl did it, but Izuku would respond saying it wasn't, it wasn't, it wasn't, over and over again, until Inko believed him. Well, she would have to believe him, it's her son, as she would look over at the girl, asking, "Did you do this?" As she would shook her head no, and saying it was Bakugo. As, "That damn brat," Inko said. "I know Mitsuki should have put him on a tighter leash as a kid," she said. "Wait, what do you mean, miss?" she said. Basically, the rough understanding of it is he's a spoiled brat and he needs to be put in his place, sooner or later. As Inko grabbed her son and grabbed the little cloth that was holding her hair in a bun, as she would have took it out and surrounded her baby boy's gashed head in it, as she would have took Izuku to the ER, leading him there for at least 12 to 13 hours, until Izuku went in and finally had his gash sealed up, nice and tightly around, leaving Izuku in the hospital bed waiting for the doctors to dismiss him from the hospital. As 2 hours went by, as Izuku finally got the okay to leave, as he was given some pain medication to take for some ear-splitting headaches that he might get during the night. But other than that, he'll be okay, he said. As Izuku had arrived home, lay straight on his bed, and opened his drawers to open to a mirror, and looked through to see the scar that you guys might know the scar. Do you remember the scar that Yujiro had in the anime of Demon Slayer, the main character of fire, water breathing, or sun breathing? I know you guys are going to slander me. It's basically that type of scar, but from season 1, but it'll get worse as it goes along, because it will spread. As Izuku would go to sleep and wake up the next morning, as he would go to school, as the kids around him would see the scar that would surround his forehead. As the teacher went up to him and asked if he was okay, as Izuku just nodded and went on his day. As the next day, the end of the day arose, as Inko was about to pick up her son until she saw Mitsuki at the corner of her eye, as she would walk over to her and slap her. As Mitsuki wondered why Inko just slapped her out of the blue, until she said 2 simple words, "Fix your," until Izuku interrupted her, asking if her mom was okay. But Mitsuki got the grip of what Inko was about to say, and would have retaliated with 1 word, or even multiple, that would have pissed Inko off, forever ruining those 2 relationship. "What did my son do? I bet he didn't do anything wrong. He's so sweet," she said. "Your son isn't sweet," she said. "How about this then? Izuku dear, come here," she said, as Izuku came over and showed the gash that he was left with on the top of his head, as Mitsuki would be shocked at the surprise that Izuku's forehead was gashed severely, just lucky enough that he wasn't blind. As Mitsuki would say, "Who the hell did you that, Izuku?" "It was your deadbeat son," Inko said. "Bakugo wouldn't do that, he's so sweet." "You think that terrorist is sweet?" Inko said. "Terrorist? He isn't a terrorist." "What do you mean, Inko?" As Inko interrupted her. "Don't you dare ever call me that, Inko, ever again. I won that little brat in therapy and a nice long apologetic letter stating why he did this to my son. And if I don't get this apology, you can forget about our friendship, Mitsuki, because I don't want you ever near my son again. You got it?" she said very angrily. You could hear the venom in her voice leaking out like some form of poison towards a snake, as Inko would have walked off with her son over her shoulders, carrying Izuku on her shoulders like any other kid. As 3 years went by, as Izuku is now 13, and Bakugo is also 13 years of age, just like their canon counterparts. As Izuku would be sat in class, as he would be talking to Shinobi, as since Izuku's had this little wound on his head, people thought he had brain damage or some form of disability, but they would be wrong, as every single time a girl would have come to Izuku and asked for him if he was okay, or even tried to be generally nice, Shinobi would see this as a threat, as she would have walked over to Izuku and grabbed him by his arms, pressing you-know-what to his shoulder. She would have dragged Izuku away and looked back at a menacing glare, saying even just a couple of words would even threaten or even scare her just from the glance. "You dare even come near my man, I'll slit your throat," she said, smiling evilly, and she would look back at Izuku with just a split second to spare before he looked at him. "Shinobi, are you okay?" he said innocently. "Yeah, I'm fine, Izu." "So, let's go to class," she said, smiling. As Izuku would walk into class, as Bakugo would be standing there, just there. As Bakugo would try to walk to Izuku to try and have a chat with him about their mother's relationship, but he'll be cut off by Shinobi interrupting the two. "You've done enough, Bakugo, now leave us alone," Shinobi said. "But it's nothing to do with you, as Bakugo was cut off by Shinobi sticking one finger to Bakugo's skin, leaving a stained mark of puric acid on Bakugo's skin, making him not being able to sweat on his neck. If you ever come near Izuku and try to talk to him again, remember the restraining order, Bakugo? If you come near him like that again, you'll be violating it, and I get to use lethal force to try and keep you away from him. And that means also making sure you're not able to sweat anymore. And that also means you would be quirkless," she said, getting the attention of Izuku. "Shinobi, are you okay?" Izuku said. "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just threatening Bakugo to make sure he stays away." "Okay," Izuku said, as he went to sit down as class began, as hours went by until Izuku went home. As the moment Izuku was walking home, Izuku felt a strange presence surrounding the area, as Shinobi would have felt it as well, but they both would ignore it until something came of it. As Izuku would cut the corner and see a giant greeny mess of sludge surrounding the area. As Izuku would try to walk away slowly, but this would come to vain, as Izuku would be noticed by the sludge villain, as the sludge villain would jump at him, surrounding his sludge around his body, making Izuku choke to death. But before anything could happen, All Might jumped in the way, grabbing Izuku's arm and pushing an almighty smash to the sludge villain, making it dispersed and disappear. As Shinobi would come over to Izuku and ask if he was okay, she would hug him tightly, not knowing she was pressed between, you know what. I don't want to get demonetized for the, get out. As the same things from canon would happen, as Izuku would rush in, Shinobi will be standing there in shock, seeing her lover run in without a second thought. But she would run in after him after 2 minutes, but after those 2 minutes have passed, Izuku will be flung out of there, as the only thing that was there was shouting, "I am here." As the moment that was shouted, the sludge villain was no more, splattered, bruised, splattered all over the ceiling, some of it being even no more from the fire that was surrounding the area. As the sludge villain was splattered, Bakugo was saved. Izuku was caught by, death arms in Tamoi Woods. As Izuku will be brought to the ground and ridiculed, and Bakugo will be praised. as Shinobi would come over to Izuku and hug him and tell him to come on, let's go, as Death Arms would grab Izuku by the arm, pulling him back. Excuse me, miss, but we have some couple more questions to answer him, as Shinobi would cut him a glare. The only thing you're doing is crushing his dreams and making him depressed. Now piss off, she said. As Izuku didn't hear that, hearing that his dreams were being crushed. Izuku didn't hear what Shinobi said, so Izuku went along with it and walked home with her. As Izuku would be walking home, the same things from canon would happen, but Shinobi would be with him to hear the secrets about One for All. Shinobi would try and deny it for Izuku's safety, but she knew Izuku wanted to be a hero more than anything. So she allowed this one thing, but if Izuku got hurt more and more and more often, she would try his best to pull her out, or pull him out from the hero course, and bring her to him by force. As Izuku would accept the quirk, as the vigorous training montages would begin. But before we come back to Izuku, let's do a little bit of Shinobi POV. As Shinobi will be staring at Izuku every single day of his training, she would make sure he was alright. But she wanted to actually get into medical school so she can learn more about her quirk and how to make different types of poisons. But she knew she could do that online, but she knew she wants to work with Recovery Girl to try and use her poisons as a numbing agent for surgeries and so on. And she could even use her poison to even heal someone if she focuses hard enough. But the healing process is nothing compared to Recovery Girl's. As she would walk over to her home and get to writing. She wasn't physically stronger than most people, but she could make a blade that surrounds her poison like substance to absorb into the handle and bring to the blade. She took this idea from Izuku, what they said as children, so she used that for her advantage and made her weapon. That's it, she said, as the blade a couple of days later would be made in a forgery, as she would be happy for the design made and everything, as she would reach for the blade. So, how does this work exactly? She said. Well then, activate your quirk and focus all your, sweat like poison into the blade, and slice at this, dog's leg, I would think. Let's just say this dog lost his leg, or a dead dog lost his leg, and he just still had it for some reason. As Shinobi would actually slice at the dog's leg, cutting it in half. As the moment it cut in half, it was slowly melting, as the poison from what she would made would have been hyaluronic acid, being one of the strongest acids that she could make without straining her body a lot, as the poison would spread throughout the dog's leg, making it faster and faster to deteriorate, like what venom would do when it eats its prey from the inside out. She would give a devilish smile inside of her head, leaving a small shiver to go down Izuku's spine, leaving him shocked. As we cut back to Izuku's POV of training. Hey, Midoriya, would you like to learn hand-to-hand combat? All Might said. Yeah, sure, I would like to, he said, as All Might got into one of his famous stances for his fighting poses, as All Might instructed Izuku to throw a punch at him like he would normally do. But All Might told Izuku to change his stance up a little bit, and spread his chest and shoulders and even waist to twist the moment he threw a punch. As All Might taught Izuku this over and over again, until Izuku was able to make All Might's face bruised slightly. That's it, young Midoriya, you're learning it, All Might said. You sure I'm not doing anything wrong? I'm pretty sure, my friend. Now, one last thing before you go for the day. You go, All Might said, poking out a piece of his hair, giving it to Izuku earlier than canon. You sure, All Might? It's only been 6 months. I'm sure. You're better off learning it now than later. If you learn it now, you'll be able to have a nice grasp on the quirk, and you'll be able to learn it a lot more, he said. Yes, sir, Izuku said, as Izuku swallowed the hair from All Might's head. As Izuku felt no different until All Might told Izuku to not come back tomorrow and take a breather. As Izuku did that and went home. As Izuku came back in the next couple of weeks until his body was fully repaired, as the training montage began of learning one for all. As Shinobi would actually be looking at Izuku in just the far end area. Izuku, why do you have to leave me like this? We haven't talked to each other in 3 months. Well, tonight you're gonna be all mine, she said. 'Cause I'm gonna ask you out, she said, smiling out loud. Caught you there. Yeah, there you go. Put your dick away. Yeah, that's what I thought. As Izuku would be walking home, as Shinobi would actually pull out from the corner and just hug Izuku or just nudge into him, not realizing it was him, quote unquote. As Izuku would just say, Shinobi, is that you? Izuku said, I'm very sorry that I haven't texted you in 3 months, but I was willing to just gonna text you tonight. Izuku, hold this, she said, holding him a teddy bear. I love you, she said, as Izuku would blush at that. Excuse me, what? Did I hear you right? Izuku said. Yeah, I love you, Izuku. Would you please go out with me? She said again. As Izuku, XC has crashed. As Izuku stood there not knowing what to say, unconsciously, he would have just said yes, making her the most happiest woman to ever live, making her more and more happier by the second. As she hugged Izuku tightly and kissed his cheek. Bye, Izuku, she said, as she skipped home that day, more happy than a newborn baby's mother. As Izuku would be standing there wondering what just happened until everything registered. I just said yes to a date, Izuku said, as Izuku was walking home, as he finally had his mother finally notice what happened. Did Shinobi ask you out? She said. Yes, Izuku said, stuttering, as she would be happier than for him, as she would just hugged him. My baby boy has a girlfriend, she said, as she hugged him. As the next day arrived, well, not the next day, as the next couple of months for Izuku's training and her, being together, Izuku would find more ways to be with her after All Might's training, of course. After All Might's training, he would go on dates with her, hug her in movies, as one day they shared their first kiss with each other, as Izuku would be on the pier of Tokyo, as she would be on the same side as him, of course, as Izuku leaned over and planted a sweet kiss as the fireworks went off in the background. As she would release the kiss, blushing like mad, as the only stuttering words she could even bring up to say was, that was nice, she said, as the blushing didn't stop, as Izuku was more happier by the second because of that one kiss. The day of the entrance exam would have arrived, as she would be taking 2 exams that day, the entrance exam and the doctorate exam, as Recovery Girl will be the one who's actually taking part in that one. Monitoring it, of course. Why would she take part of it? As Izuku would be looking at her, doing her exam, but Izuku would look away, blushing, as she would make it a little bit higher. As Izuku would be walking to the main area, so would be Shinobu. As Izuku would be wondering why she'd be carrying a sword. Hey Izuku, do you remember when we were little and you told me if I concentrated my poison or anything like that hard enough, I could technically make a sword out of it? Yes. Well, I asked a blacksmith to actually make me a sword, and this is what I got out of it. It could absorb my power into it and makes any venom I think about, she said. As Izuku would congratulate her on actually getting her blade to work and all sorts like that. As the timing would begin, as Izuku and Shinobu would rush in, she would be slicing through them like butter. Do you guys remember when the dog leg was decapitated into nothingness? Yeah, she's figured out a way to melt metal now. As Izuku would look over in shock as he would be punching down robots piece by piece. As a couple minutes later, the Ochako event would take place. As Izuku, leaning there with no fear, would jump up 100% on accident and punch the robot's head clean off its body. As Izuku was about to plummet to the ground, Shinobu was about to rush over and grab him, but thought he was gonna die. She didn't want that for her hubby-wubby, she thought internally. If he died, I would lose it, she said. As, before her last words were muttered, Izuku was caught, but she thought he was dead. As the moment she arrived, she saw Izuku passed out on the floor, and saw Ochako throwing up. As her eyes went dim, dimmer, and dimmer, as her sword was in the hilt, but her hand was twitching more and more towards it, until Recovery Girl came up to her. Hey, you're Shinobu, right? You're the girl who replied for the 2 hero and doctor exam, right? Yes, I did, miss. What's wrong? She said. Well, that person over there you hang around with, right? Your friend? Yes, she said. He'll be okay, he's just got a couple of scratches and everything. He'll be fine though, she said, as Shinobu moved her hand away from her blade, as internally she was thinking, thank God, now I don't have to kill them all, she said. As she walked over to Izuku, throwing him over her shoulder, as they both carried on their day, as the day of their actual, their marking and everything, as Izuku would get his test score in to see that he passed into the UA entrance exam, getting 2nd place, Shinobu getting 3rd, and also her physical exam for the medical stuff. I would say it would just be a test, but I would say there'll also be a physical one as well, for the exact reason that why not, because you'll probably be thinking that she could actually heal or numb the wounds, so that's why they have patients ready just in case of these emergencies. As Izuku was laid in one of the medical beds until she was finished. As the moment Izuku woke up, he saw Shinobu actually healing or even just numbing someone, so Recovery Girl can do the rest. As the little debris from the man's leg was carved out and placed into a tray. As the moment the numbing agent wore off, he was actually not much in pain anymore, because Shinobu's actual numbing factor was still inactive in some part of his leg, so he was okay, or more or less. As she walked over to Izuku, seeing he was okay, as Recovery Girl told her she passed, as she walked over to him and hugged him tightly. You're okay, she said, hugging him. As the next day actually, or the week after that, let's just cut to that, as Izuku and her would have got all their results and everything. We've already covered that. As Izuku would actually go and attend his first day of UA, as she would attend hers as well, as the afternoon will be filled with Recovery Girls, activities. As Izuku and her would both walk into class, get greeted the same way, as Bakugo would look over and just scoffed at the two. As Izuku went to sit down, as the moment he did so, he was stopped by someone. Hey, you're Broccoli Boy, the person who saved me in the entrance exam, she said. Oh, really? That's funny, Izuku said, as he looked over his shoulder to see that she was rising in anger slightly, as she was about to pull out a pretend blade, but realizing it, she wasn't holding a blade at all, as she would actually try and pull out a blade, but nothing came out, as Izuku would just sit down, seeing how nervous he was. Recovery Girl would have got the hint. Oh, not Recovery Girl, sorry. Thingy would have got the hint and sat down, as Izuku would be sitting down next to Shimura as they both held hands as Aizawa walked in. Hi, everybody. Get ready and go outside. I can't be fucking ass today, so you do you. Just get ready and go outside, Aizawa said in a very depressed tone. But sir, what about Aryan? I don't fucking care. Get outside now, Aizawa said, as everyone did so what he said. As the moment everyone came out, as Shimura in the girls' changing room. Hey, that Midoriya kid looks pretty nice, doesn't he? Mina said out loud. Yeah, he does. I wonder if he has a girlfriend. As Shimura just coughed. Excuse me, but I'm actually his girlfriend, she said. Oh, sorry. We didn't know. It's okay. Just don't go near him, she said. Why, what's up? He's mine. And if any of you little skanks even think about touching my sweet little Izuku, I'll gut you, she said with a sadistic smile. Wait, you're gonna gut us? Why? Why would you think I'm protecting my man from skanks? She said out loud. Okay, but can we still be friends? No, I don't think that, she said, as the moment she walked out first left them both flabbergasted. Wow, she must be very protective of him, she said. I think she might be a Yandere, Mina said mentally and said out loud as well. Wait, what do you mean by Yandere, Mina? She has an over-obsession with Izuku to the point I think she might gut someone. Like, actually gut someone, Mina said, horrified. Wait, you're serious? You think might do that? Ochako said. Not really, but I would think so, because she's got a Yandere type of vibe to her, but I will keep a good eye on her just in case she is actually a Yandere. If she is, then you better run for the hills if you touch her man, she said, as Ochako would just blow out a silent piece of air. I hope I haven't touched her man, she said, internally and externally. You better hope so, because she is a Yandere. Run for the hills, Mina said, as they all went outside, as everyone arrived there and did all their tests, as Izuku was called up to his first throw ball of the day. So, what was your actual longest throw in middle school? Aizawa said depressedly. I think it was 52 meters, Izuku said. Okay then. Here, throw it with your quirk now, Aizawa said. Okay, is there any limitations? Do I have to hold back or something? Nope, full on out. If you hold back even a slight bit, I will expel you, Aizawa said. Okay, sir, Izuku said, as he charged up one thrall on his arm, ready to release it. As the moment the slight tingle in his arm was about to burst, Izuku felt his limit at 10% and threw it. As Izuku tossed it into the air, it felt like he even went further, but it stopped. Okay, your mark is 752 meters, Aizawa said. As Izuku would say, fair enough, before he would walk back. Throw that ball again. You held back, didn't you? Aizawa said. No, I didn't actually. If I overuse my quirk, shut it, and do it again at 100% or I will expel you, Aizawa said. But if I do that, then no buts. Do it, he said. Okay, if I do it, then I get sent to the Recovery Girl's office then, Izuku said, blowing out a sigh of relief. What do you mean by that, kid? Well, if I overuse my quirk, then it'll, well, blow my arm off, Izuku said. That seems a bit overdramatic. Just do it already, Aizawa said, as Izuku would just throw the ball at 100% in his full arm. As the moment the ball left his hand, it went flying, going over 2,772 meters, leaving most of everyone there flabbergasted at the guy's raw strength that just released from his arm. As Aizawa looked back to see Izuku's arm, all battered and bruised and even cut open and broken. Midoriya, go to the nurse's office, Aizawa said in a depressed tone. Told you it would hurt, Izuku said, as Izuku walked off to the nurse's office and had his arm healed. As she would stand outside waiting for her hubby-wubby to come out. As the moment he did so, she waited there for him and gave him a kiss on the lips, stating that she missed him so much, she said, as Izuku and her both about to walk home before she remembered she had to go to Recovery Girls class that time. So she'll just be out for a couple minutes, okay, Zuzu? She said, as Izuku said that would be okay, as she walked off. As the moment they both met up at Izuku's place, they both went for their second date of their relationship. As Izuku would be, walking around with her and doing normal stuff on a date, until they heard a giant boom. That giant boom would lead to other things, like heroes being attacked, and so on and so forth, as Izuku would try his best to come in and try and help, but will be stopped by Shimura. Remember, Izuku, we can't fight here. We don't have our hero license, and plus we'll get expelled from UA if we get caught, she said. Okay then, Izuku said, as they both walked off, but called All Might to make sure everything will be okay. As Izuku and her both went home and relaxed for the rest of the day. The next day would arrive as everybody would get into their positions for, well, the battle training arc. As everything would go there similar, but Izuku's training would be with Gran Torino. As we cut to that point of view right now. Come on kid, you can do better with All Might's quirk than what he can. That little oaf only punches, never kicks. So use your advantage for speed and mobility for your small stature. As Izuku would get a glance of what Gran Torino could do, as he mimicked it almost perfectly the first try, as Izuku leaped from wall to wall, even to another wall, as the moment that Gran Torino was caught off guard, as the stutter came out of his mouth, not seeing where the kid went, as the Izuku bashed right into Gran Torino's back, leaving him in a daze. That's a good boy, Gran Torino said, as Gran Torino was knocked to the floor, as he slowly started to fall asleep from his old age from being tired. Huh, that was so good. Nice one kid, take a break for a little bit, we'll get out of this in a bit. As we cut back to the main timeline at point of view, as Izuku would be standing outside waiting for everyone to come out. As everyone's same team like canon, as this made Shimura really pissed off, seeing that someone next to her hubby-wubby that isn't her. How fucking gutter, she said, as she would move so far to her knife that she would actually try and cut her, but she would not cut her for the exact reason she didn't want to go to prison for murder yet, as everyone would go the same way like canon, with her having the same, well, everything. As everything would go similar to canon, as everybody would go into their respective areas, as she would go outside waiting for her to come out. At the moment Ochako turned the corner, Izuku was there. Hey Ochako, did you do well? Izuku said. Yeah, I did well thanks to you, she said, as Izuku would give her a high five, with Shimura acting a lot more jealous than what she should for her age, as she would go up to Izuku, jumped on his back, and hugged him from behind. Where's my cash? she said, pouting. As she would look over at Ochako, giving her a death's glare, as her sword would be drawn. As Izuku didn't notice it from looking back on her. Hey, what's wrong? Izuku said, as Izuku picked her up like a toddler and hugged her and kissed her tightly. Well, let's go, Izuku said, smiling at her innocently, as this made her heart melt as they both walked away. As the USJ event? Well then, that's a shocking one. As that would actually happen, everything would have gone similar. Izuku and that would be separated, but Mineta would be appraised by Shimura. So that'll be a very interesting one. As Izuku would be throwing his punch at the Nomu, Izuku would be a little bit disorientated with the Nomu actually punching him back, as Izuku would be sent flying into the stairs of the USJ entrance. As Shimura would be very, very pissed at this, as she would pull out her blade as she heard her grandmother's sound in her ears. Remember, you're a descendant from one of the greatest poison or swordsmen of our, clan. Do us proud, young one, she said, as she breathed in a slight amount of air, as she rushed at the Nomu. As the moment the Nomu was about to throw a punch, she would have ducked under its legs, jumping up, and the moment she was about to dig her sword into his neck, she shouted out poison venom, as something like a stinger would go right through the Nomu's neck. As the moment the Nomu realized that the sword was already halfway through its neck, as it stopped halfway through. As she couldn't move it anymore, she infused all of her powerful poison acid and everything into one blow. As the moment it was all injected, the Nomu was paralyzed and turned into a vegetable. As everyone was coming, the Nomu's regeneration kept on fighting off the diseases that was being pumped into him through the sword. She didn't let go, as she didn't want the Nomu to get up, as All Might finally arrived, as the same with the rest of the faculty. As All Might saw the Nomu being held on the ground as his successor was injured on the floor, as Recovery Girl came over, as she saw her protege holding off the Nomu just barely, as she would say, All Might have held it off long enough by helping Izuku out. Kill it now, she said. But it's a human. No, it isn't. It's a monster. As you would see its brains exposed. It's been experimented on. Kill it, she said. As All Might took her words, as she withdrew her sword. As All Might took this one blow at its exposed neck, decapitating it fully off. As that will be the USJ event in total. I know it's a short one, but it's there. As the day after, Izuku finally woke up from his coma, and Shimura's face would gleam with glitter. Thank you all for watching. You guys want a part 3 sooner or later? It will come out. Soon or later? I know that already. I've recorded these videos in one day, so I do hope you guys like them. The movie of it will come out after part 4, because I'm planning to make part 4 at least 40 minutes long. Thank you all for watching, and have an amazing day, everybody. Goodbye. Shinohara would actually look at Izuku in shock, hugging him tightly, knowing that he was okay. She hugged him more and more and more, until Izuku couldn't breathe. As Izuku said that, she didn't let go until Recovery Girl bumped her on the head. Stop hurting your patients like this, she said in a very worried tone. He's already been hospitalized. We don't need him hospitalized again, do we? She said, as she would say and apologize to Recovery Girl. As the moment she let go of Izuku, she held his hand tighter than what he did around his neck or even body itself. As the moment Izuku got discharged, both of them went on, a walk of the UA campus until they arrived at their classes. Mr. Aizawa, are you sure we can allow to take these weeks off? What happens if the villains attack our homes? The teacher, what about we do a little seating plan to the point we can stay here and train as well, one of the students said. No, we can't do that. We've actually talked about Principal Nezu about this. The arrangements are inclusive. You can't come and stay here yet. What about, no. You'll be having the 2 weeks off in between. If you get attacked, we will get noticed almost instantaneously. We have all your home addresses on file, and if any villains start to attack or anything, a hero will always be nearby if need be. We'll get a hero assigned for everyone, and make sure he's in the area, or she's in the area, the moment the villain attacks. As I said, letting everyone go early home, as their 2 weeks was hell for Izuku at least. As the moment Izuku started the rest of his training with his master, All Might decided to put him through the ringer and try and increase his percentage of one for all, to try and make sure he was able and ready to actually take on the threats ahead. As Izuku would go on dates with Shimura and more, well, hanging out with his friends as well, like Ida and so on. Back ago in this timeline, I'd see him working harder in his training for the sports festival, so invent his AP shot early and perfect his howitzer impact, making it as strong as around season 2 ending. So we're basically around the time he would actually have been at the end of the internships, basically down there. As Izuku would be training with Night Eye. I'm just kidding, he'd be training with the All Might. As All Might would be pushing his student to the various limits of his quirk that could leech him that way. As Izuku was about to throw one final blow, until he was interrupted by Shinora. "Izuku, I got you some dinner," she said innocently, running over to him. As the moment she was about to go near him, All Might punched him right in the jaw, almost accidentally breaking it, but leaving a slight crack. "Did you just hurt my Izuku?" she said internally, as she rushed over to him, asking if he was okay, shaking him violently. "I'm okay," Izuku said. I'm okay. You can stop," he said over and over again, as she finally listened, as Izuku pulled away from her just for 1 second, as she embraced him in a deep, passionate kiss. As the moment they separated, Izuku took a nice deep breath and managed to regain his composure. "So, what's the matter?" Izuku said. "Well, I got you some dinner," she said, pointing out a bento to him. As Izuku would grab the bento and thank you for the meal, and ate it violently, grabbing food and shoving it in his mouth bit by bit. As Izuku finished and left a little bit left for her, but she just nodded her head and told Izuku to finish the rest of it off. As Izuku asked if this would be okay, she just nodded yes twice, and this gave Izuku just to devour it more and more and more. As Izuku finished her bento, as he was stuffed beyond the valve repairer, as Izuku would be happy, same with her. As All Might would interject saying, "You sure that would be alright? What about your meal?" "Don't worry, All Might, I got my own," she said, smiling sadistically. As Izuku felt scared of what just felt down his spine. "Okay then, young man. So Izuku, that'll be the training for today. Go home, okay?" he said. "Just be careful, alright? We don't want you to go next to any villains," All Might said as they walked home. As she arrived back at Izuku's place, Inko will be at the door waiting for them both. "Oh, Izuku, you're here. Who's this pretty lady?" she said. "Oh yeah, sorry. This is my, oh, now I remember you. You're, Shinba, right?" she said. "Yes, I am, ma'am, and I'm your son's girlfriend," she said, pretending to stutter. "Well, that's sweet," she said, rubbing her head. "Please take care of my boy. I know he can be a hassle at times, but please take care of him." As Izuku would have asked if she would like to stay the night, and she would have just said yes almost instantly, blushing in a frenzy. as Izuku and her both went into Izuku's room and got ready, but Izuku would step out for her, of course, for her to get changed. But the more she wanted Izuku to stay and watch her, but she knew she can't do that, as Izuku would spend the rest of the night with her as they ate their dinner early and went to bed. As Izuku would wake up the next morning with her cuddling him like a teddy bear. As Izuku would be more and more embarrassed as the more it went on. As Izuku would actually try his best to try and snivel out of her grip, because in 2 days time they have to go back to school. So Izuku wants to spend the last day of his days training his heart out. So that's what he did when he got out. As the moment he came back, he saw a pouting Kurosua sitting on his bed. "Why you leave me, huh?" she said, pouting, making Izuku say that he's very cute. "But we need to go, don't we, for a walk?" Izuku said, smiling. "No, I will stay here," she said, pouting more and more and more. As the more she did, the more she looked cuter. As Izuku would hug her tighter. As the moment he got in bed, she instantly crawled on top of him and hugged him tighter like a body pillow. The new body pillow, of course. Then you can use the link in the description too, animemerch.com. Link in the description, use code ONI for your discount code to get 15% off. Enough selling out. Let's get into the video. As Izuku would spend the rest of his day there, not realizing it, he had to eat to make sure his muscle mass stayed up to date. As he slipped off and woke her up to eggs, bacon, and don't forget about the tea. The tea is the piece of resistance. As Izuku would give her the tea as the day went on. And I'm doing a lot of day went on shit, but it will make sense sooner or later. The festival began as the festivities as well. People came there and actually wondered who would actually be fighting or running. As everything would go like canon, Izuku would rush forward with the percentage of 1 for all he had, jumped through and surpassed most people there. As Izuku would actually nearly get to the end before she, his one and only lover, managed to surpass him in the speed department and speed blitzed past him, getting the first place victory. As we cut to, the second festivities, she would be working with Izuku as Ochaka would try and get away through, but she would try and avoid her like the bubonic plague from the early 1000s. You know what that is. As Izuku would try and ask her if she would be okay to come into their teams, but Shimbura would actually try and avoid her to try and not get on her team, not even in the slightest. As Izuku would go up to his girlfriend and ask, "What is wrong? Why are you trying to avoid Ochako?" he said. "I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to find another teammate," she said. "Well, Ochako wants to join, is that okay?" "Yeah, sure," she said with the tight grip surrounding Izuku's neck. Well, the pressure, of course, not around his neck. That would seem a bit sus. As Izuku would spend the rest of the time looking for the rest of his teammates, being Mei and Tokoyami, just like canon. As his teammates would be picked, ready to fight, as Izuku would be spending and jumping when the moment it began. Izuku was jumping through the wall and jumping his last leap. In the air, he would land back on his teammates, trying to get more and more headbands, but realizing the time was just about to end, Todoroki came in and stole the last 100 million or 1 million headband, securing them first place on Todoroki's team and Izuku getting second place for their team. As the physical ban would actually go on, the physical portion with 1v1s would go similar. Tokoyami would win, Momo would lose. But everyone else's, except from one, would stand out. This one would stand out the most, with her actually not using her original knife plan. she would use small daggers instead of her live sniping knives. I'm joking, she's using her sword. As she pulled out her blade from her back, holding it in a samurai position. "Let's go," she said, as she speed blitzed the enemy in front of her. As the moment she felt like it was an eternity, Ibarra collapsed to the ground, making their team the winner of the match. As Izuku would congratulate her on their first win, as she would get a solarberry kiss from Izuku, making them both blush violent purple-red. As Izuku would spend 2 more hours spending on the rest of his fights until Todoroki's fight would be interesting for him. As Izuku dodged most of the ice attacks, just dodging them by hairs, Izuku would shout to Todoroki, trying to make him use his fire, but to no avail. Izuku fought to screw it and actually trying to defeat him using just his raw strength. But Izuku would not be using cheap tricks, well, he tries not to. Izuku would actually try and fight him fair and fair, and use him on the half of his power, at 5%. As Izuku would actually, well, Todoroki would be offended, because he's not using his full power. Todoroki would just say fuck it and only use 20% of his, trying to prove that he was better and more superior than Izuku. But that would be Todoroki's downfall without Izuku realizing it. He hit Todoroki with almost a 15% smash to the stomach of him, making him collapse to the ground, making Izuku win accidentally. As Izuku rushed over at Todoroki and asked if he was okay, but Izuku checked his pulse and saw he was okay, just spat up blood and knocked off conscious. His recovery girl came out, seeing that one of her patients was just knocked out and just a little bit of frostbite. Izuku would wish Todoroki was okay, as they both went to recovery girl's office. With Izuku not having his injuries and scars on his hand from Ganon, Izuku would be more confident in his next fight. As Izuku was next fighting Bakugo Katsuki after his win against Tokoyami. Actually, no, it would be Ida, wouldn't it? Let's go off there then, as Ida would lose, leading to the fight next. The fight against Izuku and Bakugo. Who is the strongest? Find out now. As Izuku got into his fighting stance, so did Bakugo. As the fighting began, Bakugo spent no time and rushed over at Izuku, trying to knock him unconscious at the start so he can beat him up in secret, trying to give him fatal injuries to make him not become a hero. This would be catching the attention of Shimura, but she would ignore it, knowing that Izuku would beat the shit out of Bakugo without even trying. As Bakugo, 5 minutes into the battle, would lose his breath, since Izuku's been dodging the rest of the fight. Bakugo would try and gain back some stamina that he would lose, but this would be in vain, most likely. As Bakugo would throw haymakers at the haymakers, even one twister punch would not even hit Izuku. Izuku would not even be phased by the Bakugo's punches, thanks to the durability of One For All. Izuku won't even feel that much. Izuku just felt like it was a weak punch that was coming from Bakugo. But the moment Bakugo threw his last punch, leading from his sweaty palms. "I'm going to kill you," Bakugo said. "Just give up, Bakugo," Izuku said to him. "Never." "Fine then, don't blame me." As Izuku was just flicked Bakugo on the head, trying to knock him back, but Bakugo threw an explosion behind him, keeping him steady, as he threw himself into the air, creating a tornado. With his last remaining momentum and strength, he threw an explosion down to the ground, making Izuku lose his balance just slightly, but he still stayed in the fight, as Izuku would throw one punch, knocking Bakugo out of the ring, making Izuku the winner of the cavalry battle. As most of the girls surrounding the area would blush at Izuku, seeing that his, shirt has been ripped off, and oh god, that's gonna get me fucking cancelled. I'm kidding. As Izuku would walk over back to his seat, as Shimura would just sit on his lap with her head putting on her shoulder, looking at the girls behind the stadium. "Touch my man, you're dead," she said, internally and externally as well, basically out loud and not out loud at the same time, as Izuku wasn't able to hear that for her head covering both of his ears, as the girls surrounding the area would just "I'm out of there like Jamie Kyle," as Izuku would just sit there and wondering what she just said, as she would just kiss him, telling him to shush, as Izuku just snuggled into her, having the time of his life until the ceremony commenced. Izuku getting first medal, Todoroki getting third, Bakugo getting second, chained up like a dog on a leash. As we cut to All For One's point of view here. "Huh, why does she look familiar?" All For One said. "She does as well. She has your appearance from, you know, that stadium area." "Yeah, true, but she cannot be my daughter or descendant from me. I never had kids," All For One said. As that's where we're gonna leave the video off. Hope you guys enjoyed. It's a long one, and the movie's gonna be out sooner or later. I just need to record one more part, and that'll be the movie. I hope you all enjoyed. Have a good day. Sleep well, everybody.